Iran has deployed the Sejjil ballistic missile against Israel for the very first time in this conflict. This is no ordinary weapon. It sits among the most dangerous systems in Iran's entire arsenal. Deliberately held back and reserved for the final, all-out escalation phase, it has earned the nickname the Dancing Missile, not because of how it looks, but because of the absolute chaos it creates for any missile defense system attempting to intercept it. During last summer's clashes, even a single Sejjil warhead fragment managed to slip through Israel's aero defense system and strike Israeli territory. Now it is back in full force, arriving at the worst possible moment for Israel's defense establishment. On Sunday, March 15th, during the massive 54th wave of Operation True Promise 4, air raid sirens activated across more than 140 locations throughout Israel, from Tel Aviv all the way to Herzliya and the southern suburb. Missile debris actually struck a residential building housing U.S. consulate staff in Jerusalem. And this weapon made its combat debut less than 24 hours after American officials leaked that Israel is critically running low on the exact interceptors designed to handle threats like this one. Why the Sejjil is so difficult to stop? The Sejjil is not a conventional ballistic missile. It is a medium-range, fully solid-fueled, two-stage weapon that Iran designed, tested, and manufactured entirely domestically without outside assistance. And here is why that matters more than ever. Most people picture a ballistic missile as something that travels in one large, predictable arc, easy for modern defense systems to track and knock down. The Sejjil breaks that assumption entirely. Its warhead carries a highly maneuverable re-entry vehicle that screams toward its target at speeds exceeding Mach 5. Rather than following a straight descent path, it constantly shifts, swerves, and changes direction in ways that cannot be predicted in advance. That is precisely why it earned the Dancing Missile nickname. A standard interceptor like Israel's Arrow system works by calculating exactly where an incoming warhead will land and sending a kill vehicle to that precise point. But when the target keeps changing direction every fraction of a second, those calculations collapse completely. The only remaining option is to fire multiple interceptors in a widespread pattern and hope that one connects. That approach burns through expensive stockpiles at an alarming rate, and we will return to why this specific problem is becoming Israel's most serious challenge in this entire war. The Sejjil carries another significant advantage. Running on solid fuel means it sits fully ready on mobile truck-mounted launchers and can be fired within minutes of an order being given. No large fueling vehicles, no lengthy preparation visible to satellites, no advance warning. Iran has publicly stated that a Sejjil launch from western Iran can reach Tel Aviv in under 7 minutes from the moment its engines ignite. Because these missiles launch from moving vehicles rather than fixed bases, they survive even when entire military installations are destroyed. The coalition has struck over 600 targets inside Iran since February 28th. The Sejjil does not need any of those facilities. Iranian engineers have also reportedly coated the missile in radar absorbent materials that dramatically reduce its radar signature, making it significantly harder to detect on tracking screens, harder to follow during descent, and nearly impossible to intercept in time. This creates a brutal two-layer problem. Detection and interception both degrade simultaneously. Israel's Arrow 3 system, built to engage threats outside the atmosphere using hit-to-kill technology, depends on precise tracking data. A reduced radar cross-section cuts the detection window to almost nothing. The Arrow 2, which handles threats inside the atmosphere, faces the same problem compounded by the active maneuvering in the final moments of the flight path. The history and capabilities of the Sejjil. Uzi Rubin, the former head of Israel's ballistic missile defense program, has noted that the Sejjil appears more distinctly Iranian in its design than many of Tehran's earlier systems. Open-source analysts believe some degree of foreign technical assistance in the broader program remains likely. Development began in the late 1990s. The first test flight took place in 2008, followed by another in 2009. The missile reappeared during the Great Prophet 15 military exercise in 2021, where analysts observed what appeared to be upgraded guidance systems. What can be stated with confidence is that the Sejjil today is significantly more mature, accurate, and capable than when it first appeared. What has not been officially confirmed is whether the specific missiles deployed in this conflict carry a fully integrated GPS plus inertial navigation package. Reports about a longer-range Sejjil 3 variant also remain unverified. The interceptor shortage. A crisis within a crisis. The timing of the Sejjil's debut collides directly with a second crisis that makes everything considerably worse. On Saturday, March 14th, American outlet Semaphore published a report based on unnamed U.S. officials stating that Israel had quietly informed Washington it is now critically low on ballistic missile interceptors. Israel entered this war already short on Arrow-class interceptors after burning through enormous quantities during the June 2025 fighting, during which the United States alone fired more than 150 THAAD interceptors over a 12-day period. According to analysis from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the current war's pace is shattering that previous record. 16 straight days of continuous bombardment across 54 waves have pushed the entire defense network to the edge of collapse. One U.S. official described the situation to Semaphore as something we expected and anticipated. Those are not words of surprise. Those are the words of a government that saw the problem coming and chose not to address it before the next conflict erupted. The same official made clear that America itself faces no shortage, stating that the U.S. has everything needed to protect its bases, personnel, and regional interests. Notice what is absent from that statement: any mention of Israel's defense needs. The Israeli military pushed back quickly. A spokesperson insisted there is no shortage of interceptors and that forces are fully prepared for a prolonged fight. That denial came just hours after the semaphore report. On the surface, it sounds confident, until you look at what happened that same night. In a late-night emergency vote, the Israeli government approved a transfer of 2.6 billion shekels, roughly $26 million, to the Defense Ministry for urgent procurement. That is not how a country with adequate stockpiles behaves. That is a government writing emergency checks at midnight because the situation is genuinely desperate. The math that does not work now factor in what the dancing missile does to this equation. Each RO3 interceptor costs several $millions and takes considerable time to replace. Production lines are not designed for wartime surge demand. The Pentagon only began expanding Th-8 output in January just before the war started. A single maneuverable warhead that forces 2, 3, or more interceptor shots per incoming missile does not merely strain the stockpile. It completely destroys the cost-exchange ratio. Iran launches one Sejjil. Israel burns multiple interceptors attempting to stop it. Multiply that across dozens of missiles every single day, and the deficit grows faster than any factory can compensate for. It gets worse still. CNN has confirmed that Iran is now fitting many of its ballistic missiles with cluster munitions. Israeli officials report that roughly half of recent incoming projectiles carried these warheads, each releasing between 22 and 24 individual bomblets. Once those bomblets disperse, systems like Iron Dome are not designed to neutralize every piece. The Associated Press has reported at least 3 deaths already from these weapons, including 2 at a construction site in central Israel. The picture that emerges is deeply concerning. Israel's high-altitude interceptors are under extreme pressure. Iran's newest weapon is specifically engineered to multiply that pressure by demanding more shots per attack. And half the incoming missiles are now scattering smaller munitions below the interception line, even when the main warhead body is destroyed. 3 separate layers of stress hitting a defense system that was already running low before the first wave of this conflict began. A fundamental contradiction: consider the massive gap between what both sides are publicly claiming. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated on March 13th that Iran's entire ballistic missile production capacity has been functionally defeated. The IDF reports over 7,600 strikes inside Iran since February 28th, plus 100 in Lebanon. Human rights organizations report at least 4,900 deaths in the first 14 days of the conflict, including over 4,400 Iranian military personnel. Iran's air defense network, according to Hegseth, no longer exists. That represents an extraordinary scale of destruction. Yet Iran's response has included 54 waves and counting, along with the first combat deployment of its most advanced domestically produced missile, a weapon requiring precision solid fuel manufacturing, complex guidance systems, and advanced maneuverable re-entry vehicle technology. If production had truly been functionally defeated, this weapon should not be appearing on any battlefield. 2 explanations are possible. Either the assessment was overly optimistic and Iran retains hidden manufacturing or launch capacity the coalition has not located, or the Sejjil is being drawn from pre-war stockpiles, meaning Iran is now spending down its strategic reserves. Iran entered this war with an estimated 2,500 ballistic missiles of various ranges. The Sejjil was deliberately withheld for the first 53 waves. Whether that decision reflects patience or desperation depends entirely on how many remain in storage, and nobody has published that number. What comes next on the Israeli side? Defense Minister Israel Katz described the conflict on March 14th as a decisive stage and pledged that Iran would face uncompromising resolve. On the Iranian side, President Masoud Pezeshkian called the ongoing retaliation a duty and a legitimate right. Iran's top foreign policy advisor told CNN that Tehran sees no path toward diplomacy. The IRGC has vowed to pursue Netanyahu directly. Both governments are projecting total confidence and unbreakable determination. Both cannot be right simultaneously. The evidence does not align neatly with either narrative. Meanwhile, the consequences are spreading well beyond the immediate conflict. Oil traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has been severely disrupted. Major shipping companies have suspended sailings. Insurance companies are refusing to cover Gulf routes. An Emirates flight was forced to turn back after drone strikes affected airports near Dubai. Energy markets are reacting sharply. This war is no longer contained within the borders of the countries directly involved. It is actively reshaping global risk and prices in real time. The original strategy from Washington and Tel Aviv was straightforward: achieve total air dominance, destroy Iran's ability to strike back, and force political collapse. The reality is a nation absorbing devastating hits to its fixed infrastructure yet continuing to launch from concealed mobile platforms using solid fuel missiles that require none of the destroyed facilities. The dancing missile is now in the fight, and the question neither side has been willing to answer publicly is the one that matters most. How many more waves can this war sustain before the numbers run out entirely?